Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. Ready for another deep dive?
Always.
All right, so this one, it's fascinating, but man, is it unsettling. We're going to be talking about someone who was once, basically America's dad.
Oh, yeah.
But, well, things took a dark turn, a really shocking turn.
A turn nobody saw coming. Really makes you think about fame and image and the secrets people can hide.
Yeah, for real. So let's start at the beginning. We're talking about Bill Cosby.
Right. A name that for decades meant laughter, family entertainment,
Absolutely.
So Cosby, his comedy journey started with stand-up back in the 60s.
Gotcha.
And what made him stand out, I think, was his style. It was relatable.
Like he was just talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. Just chatting about everyday life, sharing stories about childhood.
Hilarious stories.
And it felt so natural,
Yeah.
so authentic.
It was groundbreaking, too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a black comedian reaching that level of success in the 60s, that was huge.
Absolutely huge. He was breaking barriers, paved the way for so many others. And, his albums, like Bill Cosby is a very funny fellow.
Right, classic.
And to Russell, my brother, whom I slept with, classics captured America's hearts.
He didn't just stick to stand-up, though. He went on to do television, I Spy, that spy series.
Yeah, he was the first black actor to win an Emmy for a leading dramatic role.
That's incredible. I mean, his career path was all over the place in a good way.
It really is fascinating.
From I Spy, he creates Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, the animated show.
Based on his own childhood, too.
Yeah, and then he moves on to family comedy films in the 70s, like Uptown Saturday Night, Let's Do It Again.
Audiences loved him.
That's amazing. And then you got The Cosby Show.
Oh, The Cosby Show. I mean, it's hard to explain how big that was.
It was a phenomenon.
The Huxtables, they were like the perfect American family. And Cosby, he was Dr. Cliff Huxtable.
The ideal dad.
Wise, loving, always with a witty remark.
The Cosby Show was more than just a hit. It was a cultural moment.
Oh, yeah. It dominated the ratings, showed a black family in a positive light. That was rare back then on TV.
So yeah, this really cemented his image as America's dad.
It did.
And it's this contrast, right, between that image and what would eventually come out that makes this whole story so gripping.
Yeah, you're right. Because behind that perfect father figure facade, there was a dark truth hiding.
Okay, so let's talk about that. When did these allegations of sexual assault against Cosby start coming out?
Well, the earliest accusations actually go back to the 60s.
Wow.
Over the years, a lot of women came forward. They claimed Cosby drugged and assaulted them. And these allegations, they span decades, which, paints a completely different picture of the man everyone thought they knew.
It's hard to even grasp the sheer number of accusations and how similar the stories are. It must have been so difficult for these women to come forward, knowing people might not believe them.
It takes real courage to speak out against someone like Cosby. Someone so powerful, so revered. A lot of these women probably worried about their reputations, their careers.
Of course.
But they shared their stories anyway, bravely.
And then it was Hannibal Buress, the comedian, who brought these allegations into the spotlight, right, in 2014.
Yeah, he was doing a stand-up routine and just called Cosby out, called him a rapist.
Wow.
It started a media firestorm.
It's amazing how powerful words can be. One comedian, and suddenly everyone is talking about Cosby and these allegations.
It shook his image to the core. Before we go any further, though, if you're finding this deep dive as captivating as we are, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We've got more incredible stories coming your way, stories that will make you think, question, and delve into the complexities of the human experience.
Good point. Good point. Okay, so back to Cosby. What was his response when all of this came out?
Well, Cosby and his lawyers denied everything. They said he was innocent, that it was all a smear campaign.
The damage was done.
Oh, absolutely. Honorary degrees, gone. Projects canceled. His shows, they vanished from TV. America's dad was facing a very public fall from grace.
I bet that was a shock to people who grew up with him, trying to reconcile the Cosby they knew with these serious accusations.
It forced a lot of people to face a really uncomfortable truth. Someone they admired could be capable of something awful.
Right. So what happened next? Did these allegations lead to any legal action?
Yes, they did. In 2018, after years of allegations and legal battles, Cosby was convicted, aggravated indecent assault. It was against Andrea Constand. She'd accused him back in 2005.
It must have felt like a long time coming for his accusers, like finally some justice.
Yeah, it was a landmark case. But the story doesn't end there. The Bill Cosby saga, it took another turn. an unexpected one.
This is where it gets really interesting. What happened?
Well, in 2021, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court overturned his conviction, completely overturned it. It was a shock to the legal system, and it reignited the whole debate about Cosby's guilt or innocence.
I mean, overturning a conviction like that, that's huge. It was so controversial. Can you explain why the court made that decision?
Yeah, so basically it boiled down to a legal technicality. Something about an agreement Cosby had made with a district attorney years earlier.
Right.
It seems like, with that agreement, Cosby got immunity from being prosecuted in this specific case in exchange for his testimony in a civil lawsuit that Constand filed.
So even though a jury found him guilty, there was this old legal deal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he was released.
Exactly. The court, they said his due process rights were violated because he thought he had immunity when he agreed to testify. It's complicated, but the bottom line is Cosby got out of prison in 2021.
After serving almost 3 years? I can't imagine how his accusers felt after fighting so long for justice, only to have it taken away because of a legal technicality.
It was a huge blow. For a lot of the women who came forward, they felt betrayed by the system. And it brought up this whole debate again about how sexual assault cases are handled, especially when it involves someone powerful.
Yeah, it makes you think about the bigger picture, the struggle to hold powerful people accountable for things they did years ago, decades ago even.
Right. It's complicated. The Cosby case really brought all those complexities to light. We started talking more about power dynamics, statute of limitations laws, and how hard it is for survivors to prove what happened.
It also made people think about separating the art from the artist. Could they still enjoy Cosby's comedy, knowing what he was accused of?
That's a tough question. Everyone had to grapple with that on their own. Some people felt like they couldn't support him anymore. Others said his personal life shouldn't affect how we judge his work. There's no easy answer.
So what about Cosby now? What's he been doing since he got out?
There were rumors he might try to make a comeback, maybe go back to stand-up or acting, but nothing really came of it.
I don't know how he could even make a comeback at this point. Not with everything that's happened.
It'd be a long shot. Public opinion has changed a lot. He wouldn't have the same support he used to.
His legacy is definitely tarnished. He was a cultural icon, a symbol of family. Now he's mostly known for the accusations against him.
A tragic fall from grace. It shows that even people we admire can do terrible things. The Cosby story, it's a warning about fame, about justice, and how important it is to believe survivors.
As you look back on Cosby's career and everything that's come out, what stands out to you the most?
I think what really gets me is how this case exposed the flaws in our system when it comes to sexual assault. It showed how power imbalances work, how hard it is for survivors to come forward, and all the legal obstacles that get in the way of justice.
It also shows how crucial it is to listen to survivors and believe them. For years, Cosby's accusers weren't taken seriously. People doubted their stories. It reminds us that we have to create a culture where survivors feel safe speaking out and where people will believe them.
Absolutely. The Cosby case started a bigger conversation about consent, accountability, and how we need to change the system so we can address sexual violence.
And that conversation's still going on today. The hashtag #MeToo movement really picked up steam around the same time Cosby's allegations came back into the public eye. It showed just how widespread sexual harassment and assault are. And not just in Hollywood, it's everywhere.
The Cosby case, it was like a preview of what was to come. It forced us to face some uncomfortable truths about power, privilege, and how society often protects abusers instead of the victims.
It's a tough conversation to have, but we need to keep having it because that's how we make things better. We need to talk openly and challenge the way things are. If we want to create a world where everyone is safe and where justice is served, it's amazing, isn't it? How one man's story can be tied to so many bigger issues.
Yeah, it really shows the power of stories, how they can hold up a mirror to society, to our values, our problems.
And you know what's interesting? Cosby's personal life, it often seemed to match his public image. He was a big advocate for education, family values.
Right.
He often talked about social issues in the Black community, used his platform to do it.
Like that pound cake speech back in 2004? Oh, yeah.
That sparked a lot of debate. He criticized some things he saw as negative trends in Black culture.
Some people thought he was making good points. Others thought he was being judgmental, out of touch.
It was definitely controversial.
But it showed he wasn't afraid to speak his mind, even if it meant ruffling some feathers.
Yeah.
Which is what makes his downfall so strange. Here's this guy preaching morality, responsibility, and then he's accused of doing the exact opposite.
It's a reminder that what we see on the surface isn't always the whole truth.
Exactly, and it makes you question things like, what is celebrity really? How does power work? And how easily can we be fooled by appearances?
Big questions.
So where do we go from here? What do we do with Cosby's legacy? Is it possible to separate the art from the artist?
That's tough. There's no easy answer.
Mhm.
I think some people just can't enjoy his work anymore. It's too painful. While others can separate his actions from his comedy.
Yeah, it's a personal choice. It is. But I think it's important to remember the victims, the women who accused Cosby. They went through a lot, and their stories deserve to be heard and believed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This whole story, it's a powerful lesson. We have to keep fighting against sexual violence and build a culture of respect and consent where people are held accountable.
I agree. The Cosby case is complicated. There are so many layers to it, and it still affects us today. It's about a fallen icon, about justice, and the ongoing fight for truth.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. Thanks for sharing your expertise with us.
Happy to do it. Always enjoy these deep dives.
And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We hope this deep dive has helped you understand this complex story a bit better. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment. And be sure to join us next time for another episode of Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast. We'll be exploring another captivating story that'll definitely make you think.